The Group of Seven, or G7, stands as a prominent intergovernmental political forum. It's a gathering of nations recognized for their advanced economies and democratic values. This assembly serves as a crucial platform for global discourse and collaborative problem-solving, brings together the leaders of the world's most advanced economies, a select group that wields considerable influence on the international stage. These leaders convene to address pressing global challenges and chart a course for collective action. The annual summits are highly anticipated events drawing attention from across the globe. Canada, France, Germany, each nation contributing unique perspectives and resources to the discussions. Their involvement underscores the importance of transatlantic cooperation in addressing global issues. These countries have a long history of collaboration and shared values: Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States. These nations represent a diverse range of cultures and economic systems, yet they are united by a commitment to democratic principles and free markets. Their participation in the G7 reflects their global leadership roles. These summits have historically been forums for cooperation, fostering dialogue and consensus building among member states. They provide an opportunity for leaders to engage in face-to-face discussions and forge personal relationships. This collaborative spirit has been essential for addressing complex global challenges. On global issues like economic policy, security, and climate change, the G7 agenda is broad and ambitious, reflecting the interconnected nature of these challenges. From promoting sustainable development to combating terrorism, the G7 seeks to address the most pressing issues facing the world today. The G7's decisions carry weight, influencing policy decisions and shaping global norms. The collective pronouncements and commitments made at these summits often have far-reaching consequences. The G7's influence extends beyond its member states, impacting the lives of people around the world, representing a significant share of global wealth and trade. This economic power gives the G7 a unique ability to influence the global economy and promote sustainable growth. The G7's policies can have a profound impact on trade flows, investment patterns, and economic development around the world. However, the recent summit was marked by open disagreement, not unity. This departure from the traditional spirit of cooperation raised concerns about the future of the G7 and its ability to address global challenges effectively. The divisions on display at the summit highlighted the growing tensions within the Western alliance. The main conflict centered on the United States' unilateral tariffs under President Trump, a move that sparked criticism from other G7 members and threatened to disrupt global trade flows. These tariffs were seen as a violation of international trade rules and a challenge to the multilateral trading system, which fractured traditional alliances. The imposition of these tariffs strained relationships between the United States and its closest allies, raising questions about the future of transatlantic cooperation. The divisions within the G7 were a cause for concern for many observers. Instead of reaffirming shared goals, the summit became a platform for airing grievances and expressing disagreements. The lack of consensus on key issues undermined the G7's credibility and raised doubts about its ability to provide effective leadership on the global stage. Leaders found themselves in a dispute, engaging in heated debates, and failing to reach common ground on critical issues. The atmosphere at the summit was tense and confrontational, a stark contrast to the spirit of cooperation that had characterized previous G7 meetings. Threatening decades of economic integration, the trade disputes and protectionist measures threatened to unravel the progress that had been made in promoting global trade and investment. The potential consequences of a trade war were a major concern for the global economy. The summit exposed deep fissures within the Western alliance, highlighting the growing divergence of interests and priorities among member states. The divisions within the G7 raised questions about the future of the transatlantic partnership and its ability to address global challenges effectively, challenging the very idea of a liberal international order. The rise of protectionism and unilateralism threatened to undermine the rules-based international system that had been established after World War II. The future of global governance was uncertain. Discussion shifted from finding common solutions to global problems, a hallmark of previous G7 summits. The focus shifted towards bilateral negotiations and the pursuit of national interests rather than collective action and shared responsibility, to a more confrontational bilateral approach led by Washington. This shift in approach reflected a growing skepticism towards multilateralism and a preference for pursuing national interests through bilateral deals. The consequences of this shift were far-reaching. Other leaders struggled to respond to an ally now acting more like a competitor, creating confusion and uncertainty within the Western alliance. The traditional bonds of friendship and cooperation were strained by the new competitive dynamic, questioning the rules it once championed. The United States' challenge to the established international order raised fundamental questions about the future of global governance and the role of international institutions. The foundations of the liberal international order were shaken. This G7 meeting will be remembered as a turning point, a moment when the cracks in the Western alliance became impossible to ignore. The summit marked a significant shift in the global political landscape, where transatlantic tensions erupted into open conflict. The disagreements over trade, security, and climate change exposed deep divisions between the United States and its European allies. The future of the transatlantic relationship was uncertain. The world watched with concern as the G7 summit descended into disarray, raising questions about the future of global cooperation. The events at the summit were closely followed by media outlets around the world. As the future of the Western partnership was thrown into uncertainty, the divisions within the G7 raised serious questions about the ability of the Western alliance to address the complex challenges facing the world today. The path forward was unclear. At the heart of the G7 conflict was President Trump's decision to impose steep tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, citing national security. These tariffs, 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum, targeted even America's closest allies, including Canada and the EU. The move was part of Trump's America First agenda, aiming to protect domestic industries from what he called unfair foreign competition. The administration also threatened tariffs on imported cars and car parts, a major concern for G7 nations like Germany and Canada. The rationale mixed economic protectionism with national security, arguing a strong domestic industry was vital for defense. This marked a sharp break from decades of U.S. policy favoring free trade and global integration. Trump's approach was transactional and confrontational, viewing trade as a zero-sum game. He was determined for America to win, even if it meant disrupting alliances and global supply chains. The announcement of U.S. tariffs sent shockwaves across the Atlantic. Canada and the European Union, long-standing allies of the United States, responded with a mixture of disbelief and concern. The news landed heavily, particularly amongst officials who had dedicated their careers to fostering strong transatlantic relationships. The initial reaction was one of stunned silence, as diplomats and trade representatives grappled with the implications of this sudden shift in policy. But shock quickly turned to firm resolve. Leaders on both sides of the Atlantic recognized the need for a united front in the face of what they perceived as an unjust and destabilizing action. They argued that using national security as justification against close allies was not only baseless but deeply insulting. The idea that Canada and the EU, partners in security and trade for decades, could somehow pose a national security threat to the US was seen as a preposterous claim, undermining the very foundation of their alliances. This justification was viewed as a thinly veiled excuse for protectionist measures. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, in a public address, called the tariffs unacceptable, emphasizing the deep disappointment felt by Canadians. He vowed to respond in kind, making it clear that Canada would not stand idly by while its industries were unfairly targeted. The Prime Minister asserted Canada's right to defend its economic interests. Both Canada and the EU swiftly announced counter-tariffs, signaling a coordinated and determined response to the US measures. This was a clear demonstration of solidarity and a commitment to defending their shared interests. These counter-tariffs were strategically designed to target a range of American goods, carefully selected to maximize their impact. Items like Harley-Davidson motorcycles, a symbol of American manufacturing, were specifically chosen. Bourbon, a quintessential American spirit, and orange juice, a key agricultural product, were also hit with tariffs, demonstrating the breadth of the response. The selection of these specific goods was a calculated move to maximize political pressure within the United States, targeting industries with strong lobbying power and significant political influence. The message? The trade war initiated by the US would inevitably have real and painful consequences for American businesses, their workers, and the broader economy. The hope was that this economic pressure would encourage a reconsideration of the tariffs. Prominent European leaders, including Angela Merkel of Germany and Emmanuel Macron of France, strongly condemned the U.S. actions, voicing their concerns on the international stage. They argued that the tariffs were clear violations of WTO rules and promptly launched formal disputes with the organization, seeking a legal remedy to the situation. They insisted that trade disputes, especially those involving long-standing allies, should be resolved through established international legal channels and diplomatic negotiations, not through unilateral action that undermined the principles of free and fair trade. Their response was a carefully calibrated strategy that combined immediate retaliation with a broader commitment. It was a longer-term defense of the multilateral system and the rules-based international order that had been painstakingly built over decades. By standing together in solidarity, Canada and the EU effectively prevented a divide-and-conquer strategy that the US might have hoped to employ. This unified front amplified their collective leverage in negotiations and demonstrated their unwavering commitment to a fair and equitable trading system. They made it unequivocally clear that they were prepared to endure economic pain and potential disruptions to trade. This was to defend not only their immediate economic interests but also the fundamental principles of international cooperation and the rules-based trading system. The remarkable unity displayed by America's closest allies sent a powerful and unmistakable signal to Washington, highlighting the potential costs of alienating key partners and undermining the established international order. The economic relationship between the United States, Canada, and Europe is a cornerstone of the global economy. It's a complex web of interconnected interests, shared values, and mutual dependencies that has been carefully cultivated over decades. This relationship isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about the livelihoods of millions of people and the stability of the international order. It is one of the world's largest and most deeply integrated economic partnerships. The sheer scale of this integration is staggering, encompassing a vast array of industries, sectors, and activities. Trillions of dollars in goods, services, and investments flow across the Atlantic each year, creating a dynamic and ever-evolving economic landscape. This constant flow of capital, resources, and expertise fuels innovation, drives growth, and supports countless businesses on both sides of the ocean. Complex supply chains mean parts for a single product often cross borders multiple times before final assembly, highlighting the intricate and interconnected nature of modern manufacturing. This intricate dance of production and distribution relies on seamless cooperation and efficient logistics. Canada and the EU are America's largest export markets, representing a significant portion of U.S. trade and economic activity. These markets are crucial for American businesses seeking to expand their reach and access new customers, and key sources of investment, providing vital capital for innovation, infrastructure development, and job creation. This investment flows in both directions, strengthening the economic ties between these regions. Millions of American jobs depend on this relationship, directly and indirectly, supporting families and communities across the country. These jobs span a wide range of industries, from manufacturing and agriculture to technology and services, as do countless jobs in Canada and Europe, underscoring the shared prosperity that this economic partnership has fostered. The interconnectedness of these economies means that job creation in one region often leads to job creation in others. German car makers and Canadian firms are major employers in the US and vice versa, demonstrating the deep integration of these economies and the mutual benefits of cross-border investment. This reciprocal relationship creates a more dynamic and competitive business environment. Canada's economy is especially tied to the US, with about 3/4 of its exports heading south, making the U.S. a critical market for Canadian businesses and a key driver of Canadian economic growth. This close economic relationship has shaped the Canadian economy for decades. Industries like automotive manufacturing are deeply integrated, with parts crossing the border repeatedly, often multiple times during the production process. This intricate supply chain relies on efficient logistics and seamless coordination between companies in both countries. Any disruption, like tariffs, has immediate, profound impacts on businesses and workers, disrupting supply chains, raising costs, and potentially leading to job losses. The ripple effects of such disruptions can be felt throughout the entire economy. The EU is also a massive market and partner in technology and industry, fostering innovation, driving economic growth, and creating new opportunities for businesses and workers on both sides of the Atlantic. This collaboration is essential for maintaining competitiveness in the global economy. Trade disputes create uncertainty, disrupt investment, and threaten decades of shared prosperity, undermining the foundations of economic stability and potentially leading to long-term negative consequences. The benefits of free and fair trade are clear, and any disruption to this system can have far-reaching effects. The tariffs were a shock to the very foundation of this transatlantic economic system, challenging the principles of free trade, open markets, and international cooperation that have underpinned global prosperity for generations. The long-term consequences of these actions remain to be seen. Looking ahead, there are a few possible paths. One is compromise. The U.S. drops its national security justification in exchange for concessions from Canada and the EU, restoring stability. This would require renewed diplomacy and recognition of shared interests. Another path is escalation. If the U.S. doubles down, the trade war could intensify with more tariffs and deeper economic damage. This could disrupt global supply chains and even risk a recession, while straining political alliances. A third scenario is a prolonged stalemate, with tariffs becoming the new normal and ongoing division in international forums. This would erode trust and make it harder for Western allies to tackle other global challenges together. The path forward depends on political choices in Washington, Ottawa, and Brussels. The G7 summit exposed deep divisions but clarified the stakes cooperation or continued conflict. The future of the G7 and the broader international order hangs on whether leaders can bridge the divide.